Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, verse 42. Vrishasya nastam strin padan Tapa socham dayam iti Prati sandara asvasya Mahim cha samavardayat. Vrishasya, of the bull, the personality of religion. Nastan, lost. Trin, three. Padan, legs. Tapa, austerity. Socham, cleanliness. Dayam, mercy. Iti, thus. Pratisandadhe, re-established. Asvasya, by encouraging activities. Mahim, the earth. Cha, and samavardayat, perfectly improved. Translation, thereafter the king re-established the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull, and by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of the earth. Purport, by designating particular places for the personality of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit practically cheated Kali. In the presence of Kali, Dharma, in the shape of a bull, and the earth, in the shape of a cow, he could actually estimate the general condition of his kingdom, and therefore he at once took proper steps to re-establish the legs of the bull, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. And for the general benefit of the people of the world, he saw that the gold stock might be employed for stabilization. Gold is certainly a generator of falsity, intoxication, prostitution, enmity, and violence, but under the guidance of a proper king or public leader, or a brahmana or sannyasi, the same gold can be properly utilized to re-establish the lost legs of the bull, the personality of religion. Maharaj Parikshit, therefore, like his grandfather Arjuna, collected all illicit gold kept for the propensities of Kali and employed it in the Sankirtan Yajna as per instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam. As we have suggested before, one's accumulated wealth may be divided into three parts for distribution, namely 50% for the service of the Lord, 25% for the family members, and 25% for personal necessities. Spending 50% for the service of the Lord or for the propagation of spiritual knowledge in society by the way of Sankirtan Yajna is the maximum display of human mercy. People of the world are generally in darkness regarding spiritual knowledge, especially in regard to the devotional service of the Lord. And therefore, to propagate the systematic, transcendental knowledge of devotional service is the greatest mercy that one can show in this world. When everyone is taught to sacrifice 50% of his accumulated gold for the Lord's service, certainly austerity, cleanliness, and mercy automatically ensue. And thus, the lost three legs of the personality of religion are automatically established. When there is sufficient austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, naturally Mother Earth is completely satisfied, and there is very little chance for Kali to infiltrate the structure of human society. Translation: thereafter the king reestablished the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull, and by encouraging activities to sufficiently improve the condition of the earth. So this verse expresses the relationship between religiosity or dharma and the earth, or the bull and the cow, as is represented here. And at this stage we see that the bull had three legs missing, which are mentioned in this verse. That is tapas, saucham, and doya. Austerity, cleanliness, and mercy were all missing. And there was only one leg left, truthfulness. So Parikshit Maharaj restored those three legs so that the bull was standing on four legs. So once these principles of truthfulness and austerity and mercy and cleanliness were established, then the earth prospered. So we see here a relationship between the conduct of the human being and the earth. If the human being does not follow these principles of cleanliness and mercy, austerity and truthfulness, then the earth suffers, which means the earth does not give produce properly. Everything is irregular and the human being suffers. On the other hand, if the human being acts according to these principles, then the earth prospers and human beings survive and they can live comfortably. So we find a relationship between the ethical responsibility or the moral responsibility of the human being and the condition of the earth, which is in one sense a little bit, from one point of view, doesn't make any sense, because we see that animals don't have any morality as such. They don't have laws to follow or anything, but the earth goes on. So why is the human being any different? So the answer to that is that the human being is different from the animals and the plants, and therefore he disturbs the earth by his activities more than the tiger or the dog or the cat or the bird does. Why is that? One is that you can say the human being is more advanced. He's more advanced living being. He's a more advanced animal. And therefore, he has higher intelligence, higher mind, higher memory, so many abilities, the power to discriminate one thing from another, intelligence to make things, organize things more than animals can. That's his special ability. In one sense, it's good, because then human beings can do so many things and survive in this world and build things like cities, etc. Then the bad aspect is that they can also use this same intelligence in a negative way to destroy each other, as we see. So I often point out that animals also kill. Many of them have to survive by killing, so the tiger kills the deer, or the dog kills the cat or whatever, or the bird. The cat kills the bird also, or the mouse, whatever. So there is violence in the material world. It's the nature of the world, but we never see that the violence goes to extremes as it does in the human being. And that is because the human being has higher developed intelligence. So one is he can invent weapons, and with these weapons he can kill more of his own species. Of course he could kill the animals also, and he can also kill the human beings. And so the weapons are especially meant for killing other human beings. And then we advance so much that we even get weapons that can wipe out the whole of humanity. That's the nuclear weapons. So, of course, war has always been there in human society. We see battle of Kurukshetra was there 5,000 years ago, and in the world we see so many different wars, including First World War, Second World War, and it's all a problem, but it gets worse and worse because the weapons get more deadlier. They get deadlier. And therefore we have weapons that can destroy everything on Earth, not only the human beings, but the whole Earth itself. And it's under the control of human beings. So their intelligence can go in a negative way and cause a lot of destruction. So that's one direction. But even if the human being doesn't go to that extent, we find that if we have a scenario where there were no such thing as atomic weapons or whatever, still, or no weapons even, let's say, still human beings have this tendency to overdo everything. They go to extremes. So in this purport, Prabhupada talks about the accumulation of wealth. People gather their wealth together and hoard it like anything. So that's one type of extreme. And then we see extremes in eating, for instance. So people will eat all sorts of things. Not vegetarian, non-vegetarian, whatever. And then on the non-vegetarian thing, then they'll eat all sorts of things also, as we see. This gives rise to a lot of problems for human beings. As they say, the coronavirus itself happened because of the meat markets, etc. And then the other aspect is that even if they confine themselves to a few types of meat, then still there's excessive eating. And therefore we have a proliferation of restaurants and people overeating. And most of the people are struggling in some sections of the world for food. In the other section, they're overeating and getting overweight and whatever. So that we find that probably in advanced countries, 2/3 of the people are overweight, or three-quarters are overweight, or how much is it? Maybe it's 90%, who knows? So it's an extreme that doesn't happen in the animal kingdom, but it happens in the human kingdom. So that's just eating. So we could say the same about sex life or anything else. Extremes in the human being. And if it's unregulated, this is what happens. So we have here the laws of Dharma represented by the bull. So the Dharma means the rules of regulation of the human being, not the animals or the plants, because as I said, they do what they do, but they do it in limitation. But the human being doesn't do it in limitation. He does it to extremes if he's left on his own. So therefore we have rules. So every society has rules. We take the most so-called primitive society in the world. They all have some rules they follow. If they don't have those rules, that community falls apart, that society falls apart. So any society that has continued for a long period of time, they have a set of rules they have to follow. They control their senses to some degree. And then we find modern societies, each country has its rules and regulations also. So there are some regulations that everybody accepts. So the what we call Dharma, which is mentioned here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is a set of rules. It is a little bit different. Some of the rules are the same, but there's several differences. One is the goal of these rules is quite different. Ultimately, people may not realize that when they're following the rules of Dharma, but the goal is quite different. It's a unique goal. And because of that, the rules themselves have, we can say, details and subtleties that we won't find in other systems of Dharma in the world. Just for instance, here we have one of the things is non-violence, or doya, compassion. This is one of the legs of Dharma, to show compassion, to show mercy, which means that we respect life as such. Now, that's there in all societies, small societies, tribes, or whatever. They have some rules for that. And when we get to modern civilizations, again, they have rules. So if you murder someone, you get thrown in jail, and that's probably a common principle all around the world. So that far they go. Let's show mercy. And then they'll extend that mercy a little further. Okay, let's take care of the dogs. So you can't be cruel to your pets, your cats and your dogs, for instance. If you show cruelty, probably you get arrested or fined also for that even nowadays in Western countries. Not in India, not in some countries probably, but in other countries you get arrested if you are cruel to your dog and your cat. But what about the other animals? What about the pig? Horses are also included, I think. If in Australia, I think you get fined if your horses are not treated properly. But what about your sheep? And what about your chickens? And what about your pigs? And what about the other animals? Where is the sense of mercy there? So on the other hand, modern society does something quite remarkable in that, of course, they do have mercy in one sense. We try to protect the species like the koala bear and the rare species and not have anyone interfere with them. But what about the mass production of meat? They don't do anything about that. So you have all the chickens there in little cages and artificially produced. You have the cattle getting bred artificially or whatever, pigs, etc. So where is the doya there? So the doya is limited to certain groups according to our cultural thing. But according to the Vedic literature, it says to everything. The human beings, the animals, and the plants. Everything is covered by the system of doya. That we have to show compassion on all those levels. So that type of rule makes it a little more unique among the systems of Dharma or regulation in this world. So that is just one example, the doya example. Socha, cleanliness is mentioned here, which has one level, the physical level of cleanliness, and then the other level, which is also very important, the mental level of cleanliness. So this is also very, very important. We can say, well, how is that moral or whatever like that? Cleanliness is just a physical thing, take a bath or whatever. But actually, if we examine it closely, physical and mental and then Dharma and following rules and regulations, controlling the mind are related to each other. So we have rules for cleanliness in Dharma itself, which probably you'll not find in any country of the world. They don't have a rule you have to take a bath or something like that in your state rules like that. But it's a rule of Dharma that you have to keep clean. And it's regulated, not once, but 3 times a day, for instance, or whatever like this. Not just the body, but then the clothing also has to be clean. Everything has to be clean. The teeth have to be clean. The hands have to be clean. Everything has to be clean. The water has to be clean. And they're very specific that even the water, you have to take it from a certain place. You cannot take it from this place. You've got to take it from this place. This place is better than that place. This one's better than that, etc. So running water is good. Well water is good. Ocean water is good, fresh water is good, but bubbling water, tap water, all this is bad. So there's all sorts of rules for cleanliness and how to clean an item also, different rules for cleanliness. Some things you cannot wash, so then you have to clean them by sunlight or by age or whatever. So that's the physical aspect, and obviously it has repercussions. If there's not physical cleanliness, then we tend to get diseases and all sorts of things. Even this coronavirus, they say a lot of it's caused because of uncleanliness. They don't wash their hands, people. So therefore it spreads like this. So Socha has got a physical aspect of health, preventing sickness, etc. But it has a subtler aspect as well, which has been realized by the Vedas, and that is that the physical cleanliness of your body affects your mind. You can probably do an experiment and stay dirty for a few weeks, and you can see where your mind is also going. So the physical cleanliness of the body has a mental effect. And the use of pure water has a cleansing effect on the mind itself, not just on the body, the physical body. Of course, we can also see that maybe graphic examples of that. People who are all confused and tired and whatever, if they take a cold shower, then suddenly they're a little clearer in their mind. Just like taking a cold shower. We have a physical effect, and we have a mental effect of cleanliness. So apart from that, the mind itself has to be cultivated to keep clean, which means we have to control the mind. And it is, of course, very difficult to control the mind. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna argues that it is too difficult to control the mind. And Krishna says, yes, it is difficult, but you have to do it if you want to advance. If you want to elevate yourself, you have to control the mind. If you don't do that, you degrade yourself, and you end up in a position of great uncleanliness. So you have to control the mind. And the physical aspect of cleanliness helps for the mental aspects, so we can control the mind also. However, there's another great factor in the cleanliness of the mind and control of the mind, and that is what we call sangha, association. So that association influences our mind an awful lot. And of course there's association with things, and there's an association with people. So these will affect the mind and cause us to think in certain ways. So if we associate with people who are very violent or sinful or have all sorts of bad habits, then our mind will also go in the same direction. We'll become contaminated by that association, which that association means not just coming close to a person, but establishing a friendly relationship with that person. Then we get influenced by that person's mentality. We adopt the same mentality. An example is given, of course, in the Nectar of Devotion. It's like a crystal. A crystal is clear, like a quartz crystal, clear color. If we put it near a red flower, it looks red. We put it near a blue flower, it looks blue. We put it near a yellow flower, it looks yellow. So people are like that. They go near one person and they associate very closely, they'll become like that person. They go to the next person, associate with that person, they'll become like that person. So the human being tends to pick up a lot of influences from other people. And if it's the bad things, then they end up as a bad person also. So if you have bad association, you also become like that. It has a positive aspect. We associate with pure people, then we can also become pure. So good, we have to choose very carefully how we associate. And this will affect the cleanliness of the mind. So it's a very, very powerful influence. Apart from people, then the environment itself and the things we associate with are very, very influential. Yeah? So they often have a complaint nowadays that all the kids are using on their telephones, playing games on their telephone all day long or something, on their cell phone, whatever like that. They're just getting completely addicted to that sort of thing, you know. So that object itself pushes the mind in a certain direction. And this is, that's like computers and cell phones and so many things like this. They tend to occupy the mind in one direction. And if it's not that, then it could be something else. If you live in a very wild neighborhood, you tend to get influenced by that. If you live in a peaceful place, then you get a good influence there. If your house itself has a peaceful environment, then very good. Mind becomes very peaceful. On the other hand, if your house is built in a certain way with certain decorations and certain music in it, it'll go the opposite direction. They've done studies on music, just even on animals and plants. And when they have very nice soft music or classical music given to the plants grow very nicely. Or the rats, they get a little more intelligent. And when you have heavy rock music playing for all day long, then the plants wither. And the rats kill each other. So that's the music influence, you know. The type of music you listen to can influence your mind and make it either very peaceful or very violent or whatever. So and then we have food, what you eat. So if you eat violent food, that is food coming from animals, then you tend to pick up that restlessness and violence and lack of control. If you eat sattvic food, that is vegetarian food, then your mind becomes very peaceful. So that's just a few aspects: environment, food, music, or whatever, people that can affect the purity of your mind. So what's important about this purity is that if we don't have that purity of the mind or cleanliness of the mind and the body, then the mind will develop all sorts of attractions for excess in this world, which I mentioned, such as extravagance in any sphere of life. We go out of control. So in the Vedic system, this is called sin. When we act against the rules of Dharma, it's called sin. And the rules of Dharma are there to raise us up and to restrict us to some degree. They don't prevent completely, but they restrict us in all of our eating and our associating with other people and whatever. So we have to do something, so it's restricted, and certain things are forbidden because they will push us downwards. So when we don't have that cleanliness of the mind and cleanliness of the body, then we tend to go down. We cannot control our senses, cannot control our mind. We get filled with desire, we get filled with anger. We do these sinful activities, and we end up doing violence in this world. And as I mentioned, that violence in the world is one of the, we'd say, the destructive elements killing the leg of Dharma, etc. Consequently, the earth itself suffers, and we suffer because we don't get the food. So there's a relationship between the human being and his acts like socha, doya, etc., and the preservation of the earth. The more violent we are because we don't have cleanliness and we don't have mercy, the more violence we show to other human beings, to animals or to plants, then the earth suffers. The earth gets a reaction. Which may not be, or has not been evident up till now, but now we do see that even scientists understand that yes, there is a problem. We raise all the animals like this and we kill them or whatever. It does have an effect on our environment. They say if anyone could be vegetarian, I think everybody in the world could be vegetarian for at least one day a week. It would solve a lot of our environmental problems. So if everybody's vegetarian, fine. Then we get a lot of the environmental problems that we have on this earth. Few people are beginning to appreciate this fact that the human being is in a delicate balance with the world itself. Some people realize that and they become environmentalists or whatever. But anyways, it's already stated here in the Bhagavatam that there's a very delicate relationship, and human being has to conduct himself in a very precise manner in order to keep peace on the earth. However, there's another unique factor, not that just we have more comprehensive rules, that aspect of Dharma, than other systems of laws, but the goal is different. The goal is not simply to be peaceful on earth. That's one level, where we have the earth and the human being interacting in a peaceful way. But then once we're peaceful, what are we supposed to do? So therefore we have a definition of a spiritual goal. That's also there. Very, very important. And that's the whole goal of all these rules of Dharma that we have, to get a spiritual goal. So what is a spiritual goal? We can speculate on our own what that is, but everyone will have a different idea, and at best it'll be quite vague. So in the Vedic literature, of course, we get a spiritual goal. Actually, we have a variety of spiritual goals, but also a hierarchy to show what is the supreme spiritual goal. And therefore, if we examine carefully the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see that all the aspirations of all the major religions and minor religions of the world are actually covered in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a concession on different levels until we get to the highest conception of what is spirit, what is matter, who is God, and who are we. It operates in all levels, and then we get the highest level of all. So that's another unique feature of the system. It relates it to God. And then within spiritual life itself, we get gradations until we get the highest concept of God itself. And that's a unique feature of the Bhagavatam as well. So these are some of the things that have to be thoughtfully considered when we conduct ourselves in this world. Are we following these rules or not? And are these rules connected with that higher principle of understanding spiritual life? If we do that, then we can get some peace in our own life and contribute to the peace of the earth. Okay, any question there?
So much basically, Krishna Maharaj more or less stopped Kali Yuga by re-establishing the legs of Dharma and the cow. So we hear about the prophecy that we're entering into the next 10,000 year golden age. So what can we expect that to look like? I mean, is that like total population influence in that way, or a segment of the population?
Well, we could say, let's say, an overall improvement. And maybe in some places great improvement. We can't expect everywhere, obviously, it's very difficult, but at least in some places we'll get a higher, and overall we'll say a higher dharmic consciousness, and in some places we can get even greater than that.
So I guess like even in Satyuga, the 1.6 million Satyuga, there was still miscreants.
Yeah, we have demons, big demons popping up, and then someone has to come and kill the demon sometimes, So there are, it's like Satyuga is very wonderful, but it's not all sattvic. There's a few tamasic and rajasic elements there, and that starts increasing as we go to Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yuga, and then Kali Yuga, it's mostly like that, and very little sattva.
So the 10,000 year golden age is because of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, or is it every Kali Yuga has that little...
It's not really mentioned, but I would assume it's because of Lord Chaitanya. In that prediction, the Brahma Vivarta Purana, it doesn't specifically mention Lord Chaitanya there. It's all about Krishna, and then it says after 10,000 years then, or 5,000 years, then it will be 10,000 years of prosperity and Dharma.
What is the prediction exactly in the verse of the Purana?
It's the Brahma Vivarta Purana. Yeah. So there's a section there about maybe 20 verses or so. There's a little story that goes with it. The rivers are complaining that Krishna is going to disappear. So what's going to happen? Everyone gets sinful in Kali Yuga. Everybody bathes in our rivers. We get polluted. So what are we going to do? So then the answer is that in Kali Yuga, after so many years, 5,000 years, then there will be a gold age, or things will improve, and Dharma will be restored to some extent. So there'll be some relief at that time for the rivers also, because there won't be there'll be much less sinful activity, etc. at that time. It only appears in that place, and it doesn't say if it's every Kali Yuga. It's specifically because the question comes up, therefore this answer is given. So I would assume it's particularly for our age. Okay, fine. Okay, Hare Krishna.